Hello, welcome to another session of ADAPT Productions of Chicago. I'm Joel Margolis, your host for today, and this is another episode of ADAPT Productions, the show produced by disabled people, about disabled people, and for not only disabled people, but the general community as well, and all those who want to learn something more about the disabled world. With me today are two delightful guests, Rachel Evans and Mike Grice, both of whom are connected with the premier advocacy group for the disabled known as Access Living. I'd like to start today by asking each of you, Rachel first, to tell us something about your own professional background and experiences and your current position.
So I recently graduated from Kalamazoo College, and I'm now working as an AmeriCorps Vista at Access Living, working with the group we're here to talk about, DRAC, to build capacity for that group.
And for those in our audience who might not be familiar with Vista, could you tell us just a little bit about Vista and how that leads you to Access Living?
Yeah, so Vista is an AmeriCorps program that puts people really of all ages and experience levels into nonprofit organizations to help be an extra hand there for a year, and that the organization doesn't have to pay fully for. So I'm funded by AmeriCorps and then can help Access Living without being a huge expense.
Sounds good, okay. And Mike, what have been some of your activities?
Well, I was one of the very first consumers that signed up with Access Living to receive services when they first opened.
Which is a while ago, I take it.
Which was back in the 70s.
Whoa! So you have a long pedigree with Access Living.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And have you also been involved in volunteer activities at Access Living?
Yes, I've worked there in the internship program as well as volunteering.
But since housing is our real focus for today, I'd like to ask you, Rachel, to tell us what are the several areas of the housing world with which Access Living is connected.
So at Access Living, we have housing counseling and location services. We have a lot of deinstitutionalization efforts and services. And we have fair housing law and lawyers. And then the advocacy group, which is us, the Disability Rights Action Coalition for Housing.
What exactly does Access Living do in the housing counseling program?
So there is a group, a housing counseling class, that helps people to better understand how they can get housing through Section 8 or in Chicago in general. And we have a couple of classes. Stepping Stones is one that helps people in the move from an institution to their own independent living. And some people who work to find housing that is accessible and affordable for our consumers.
Now, when you say work to find housing that is accessible and affordable, you're not suggesting, though, that Access Living literally goes out and finds the housing for somebody without their participating?
Right. So we have groups you can participate in at Access Living, and we have lists of places that sometimes have available, affordable, accessible housing. But people come and are counseled, and we try to help, but do not actually provide housing for our consumers.
Okay, so in the housing counseling program, Access Living is serving, if I may put it this way, as a facilitator to help disabled individuals who are looking for housing themselves, to help them make their search more effective.
Right, and then once somebody finds a place, we also have services to help them move into that place.
Oh, a move-in, okay. But just to be clear on this point, Access Living does not actually own or maintain housing, does it?
Correct, no.
Okay, important distinction. Now, I've heard also that you have a program that somehow is connected to home ownership, and since you at Access Living are not a real estate agency and are not there to be brokers. What exactly is it that you do vis-a-vis home ownership? Are you helping those who want to buy a home find homes of their own?
I think it's more of finding places that are available and then helping people to understand their rights and responsibilities both as tenants and homeowners.
And as homeowners. So that somebody who's in the financial position to move into home ownership, okay, and is disabled as well, can come to Access Living for some help in making that transition to the home ownership step?
And we have financial literacy classes too, which can relate to that in talking about mortgages and credit scores and helping in that process.
Helping people find their way through that sometimes very confusing morass of the financial world.
Yes.
I know, it can confuse many of us. There's no doubt on that score. Now, you mentioned deinstitutionalization. That's a very long word. I'm not sure that I could spell it correctly.
It's hard.
But that refers to getting people out of institutions. Now, we've all read horror stories about decades past when there were state institutions that sometimes had very bad conditions. Has Access Living been involved in the fight to close down these Dickensian places and move people to more humane locations?
Would you like to talk a little bit about that, Mike?
And
Of course.
Mike is someone who has actually made the transition from institutional living to independent living?
And has participated in some of our efforts to close some of those really poor institutions.
Mike, could you tell us something about your own story in moving out of the nursing home world and into a place of your own?
Well, I just transitioned this past April with the assistance of Access Living through a program called Stepping Stones.
Stepping Stones.
And that is a 11-week program where the curriculum helps you in a lot of different ways. Talk about civil rights, talk about Medicare, Medicaid, transportation, public aid, everything that a person with a disability would need in the community to be successful.
So Stepping Stones, if I hear you correctly, is a multifaceted program that targets not just helping you to find a living place, but address some of the challenges of living on your own?
Yes, Stepping Stone gives consumers with disabilities that want to transition the tools to be successful in the community.
And had you been in a nursing home for just a few months or somewhat longer?
I had been in there a lot longer.
So this was a long-term nursing home stay, okay? So for you this was, if I may put it this way, a major transition in life?
Yes, it was. And I was looking forward to this transition.
And Access Living helped you, number one, to find the apartment in which you're now living?
Yes, and they also furnish the apartment and help you set up everything that you need in your apartment to be successful.
Okay. And are you now renting or do you own your unit?
I rent.
Okay. And you have been in that unit for how long?
I've been in my unit for almost 9 months.
So you did not move in just last week. You're already beginning to settle in, it sounds like.
Yes,
Are you happy with that unit?
I'm very happy.
Okay. And do you feel that the location is serving you decently?
It's a great location. I have everything that I need right in my community.
Now, within the unit, I know from my own experience, There are some things that a disabled person can do in their apartment. There are some things that they honestly cannot do. I myself have some housekeeping service twice a week. Do you have some assistance coming in to help you with all the functions of having a unit of your own?
I have a series of personal care assistants that come in and help me bathe, dress, cook, clean.
They actually help you with the cooking?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing some reviews from you on Yelp or some other online service about their cooking service, so I'll know whether or not to use them, okay? Or for that matter, you might want my reviews of the excellent meals I've received through Meals on Wheels. So there you go. Sounds like you have made a major transition in life. Do you recommend other disabled people to attempt this transition?
Yes, I do. I would say that I don't believe anyone should be in an institution unless they have to be there.
So minimum use of institutions and maximum independent living, if I hear you correctly.
Yes, and one thing I'd like to add, I received my services through the home service program through the state of Illinois.
Which is funded by the state of Illinois, not by the federal government?
It's funded both ways.
Both ways, federal funding and state.
Right.
And did Access Living help you hook up with those services?
I brought in some of my own people out of the institution
Oh, so
that
you...
I was living in.
Okay, and you
Prior.
also have, and in addition to bringing in some of your own, you also have some others provided through the Home Services program referred to you?
Yes.
So you have a mix and match situation.
Yes.
Sounds very good indeed. Now, in addition to deinstitutionalization, I know that Access Living has a program in which you are very involved, Rachel, called DRAC, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah.
Not Dracula, but DRAC.
Correct.
That's D-R-A-C-H? Okay. Now, in this world of endlessly confusing acronyms, and I myself am a former federal employee, I've been through quite a few acronyms. What does DRAC stand for?
DRAC is the Disability Rights Action Coalition for Housing.
Disability Rights Action Coalition for Housing.
Yes.
That is a mouthful.
Yes,
now, in real life, as we put it, what does DRAC do?
So we are an advocacy group made up of people with disabilities volunteering their time to come and work on policy and advocacy.
And I want to thank you for telling us about DRAC, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it on another occasion, since it sounds like today we only just touched the surface,
Yes.
and DRAC actually has a great deal more to offer
Oh, yes.
than we can cover now. And for those who would like to know more about Access Living Services, is there a telephone number they can call?
Yes, they can reach us by calling Access Living and saying they're interested in working with DRAC. Access Living is 312-640-2100.
That was 312-640-2100
Yes.
to reach Access Living. Sounds very good. I want to thank both you, Mike Grice, and you, Rachel Evans, for coming in today and giving us your time and your opinion and valuable information on a very important issue. Hello again. For those of you who were not with us earlier, I'm Joel Margolis, a member of ADAPT Productions of Chicago, and as a continuation of our interviews about housing programs at Access Living. We have with us now Brock Grosso. Brock, could you please tell our viewers exactly what is your position at Access Living?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Joel. I am the housing organizer and policy analyst at Access Living. So I coordinate a group called the Disability Rights Action Coalition for Housing. It's a group of people with disabilities who are working in the city of Chicago to expand access to affordable, accessible, and integrated housing for people with disabilities.
I'm glad you introduced yourself with that particular explanation, because it's precisely DRAC, Disability Rights Action Coalition for Housing, that I want to ask you about, okay? Now, it's my understanding that DRAC is not a separate organizational unit, but is rather a program or an initiative, if I understand that correctly. Could you tell us a little bit more about what's involved in DRAC, in addition to the general purpose statement of open housing?
Yeah, so DRAC is the place where Access Living really generates and drives its housing policy work. So it's completely consumer-led, led by people with disabilities. And basically what's involved is myself as the coordinator. I work closely with a group of really strong, committed leaders who volunteer their time to operate DRAC, and then we work as a group to just involve more and more people with disabilities in the housing policy issues of the city, and that group really helps drive and dictate what Access Living works on at the city level as far as housing policy goes.
Now, when you talk about open housing, are you saying that one of the prime purposes of DRAC is to overcome discrimination against the disabled in the rental market?
I think it's that, but on a little bit broader of a level. So we do a little bit of work on individual buildings, but it's more about broader public education, both for people with disabilities so they know what their rights are, but then also at the city level and at the developer level to say these are the laws around fair housing that affect people with disabilities, here are some of the barriers to housing, and here are some of the solutions to that.
So if I understand you correctly, DRAC involves what we might call consumer education for renters?
I mean, I think by the nature of the people we work with, which are extremely low-income people with disabilities, most of the people are renters, yes, but it's not exclusively about rental housing. It just happens that the folks we work with are by and large
Primarily renters.
Yeah.
But there's also a program or a component of the program which is to educate the landlord as to what his obligations are?
I think we will educate anyone that will help the people we're working with obtain housing. So if it becomes necessary that a landlord or a group of landlords need to be educated, we will educate them. But I think DRAC is about centering what the needs and experiences are of the people in the group. So if the group decides, hey, there's this group of landlords and they just don't understand what the laws are when it comes to discriminating and not discriminating against people with disabilities, DRAC will step in and take care of that. So I think DRAC is a little vague in what its stated goal is, and I think that's on purpose because we want to be able to respond to what the needs are of the community at that moment.
So we might say the DRAC has an expansive mission?
Yeah, yes, definitely an expansive mission, yeah.
Now, to make this more understandable for
Right.
people who might not be familiar with the housing world, could you give us some concrete examples of specific actions that DRAC has taken in the last 6 months, let's say?
Yeah, so our last big kind of notable campaign was longer than 6 months ago, but I think it helps get to what you were saying.
Then let's hear about
Yeah,
it.
so DRAC was working with people, hearing from people with disabilities in the suburbs of Chicago that they were being told that this unit doesn't accept Section 8 vouchers, so they can't rent there. And a lot of folks said, I think what's really happening is they just don't want people with disabilities in their building, but they're just saying that Section 8 vouchers are the reason. So DRAC got involved in a campaign with the Metropolitan Tenants Organization and another organization called Progress Center to pass a countywide law that says you cannot discriminate on someone based on their source of income. So now in Cook County, you can't say we don't accept Section 8 vouchers. That's now against the law. So that's something DRAC heard from people, that this is the issue we're facing. We're getting discriminated against because of source of income, and we want that to be changed. So we, built coalitions with other organizations, went to elected officials in the county, and got that codified into law.
So in effect, what was happening is that people were being denied housing because they were trying to use Section 8 vouchers?
Yeah, I mean, people
Okay.
had advertisements that said no Section 8 when they were had
And
advertised
at
for
the
housing.
time that the landlords placed the advertisements, they could actually do
Yeah,
this
yeah,
legally?
And Chicago for a long time has had that illegal, but in the ring suburbs where a lot of people have been displaced because of rising housing prices in the city, it was legal to say no Section 8.
So in effect, what DRAC did in consortium with some others is basically change Cook County regulations
Mhm.
so as to make discrimination against Section 8 voucher holders literally illegal.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all right. Does DRAC have any other campaigns going on now?
Yeah, so we're working with a coalition of groups to improve the city's affordable requirements ordinance, which
Now, what is the Affordable Requirements Ordinance?
it's kind of there's a lot to it. I guess at its core, it's an ordinance that was passed in 2007 with the goal saying in neighborhoods that are really rapidly being developed in a way that's actually displacing families that live there.
In neighborhoods with a good deal of gentrification?
Yeah, gentrification it is a word that people use for it. Yeah, so like Logan Square is a good example of that. The Affordable Requirements Ordinance says there needs to be some mechanism to provide affordable housing for the people that are there, whether developers have to build affordable housing or have to pay into a fund that goes to subsidize affordable housing. So we're a part of a coalition that's working to actually make improvements to that ordinance along with the city. And actually, from DRAC's perspective, raise the issue that it's not just about affordability for us, it's about accessibility and integration. So we're trying to push to get a small portion of that funding available for things like home modifications, for example, so that people with physical disabilities can actually access these affordable homes, things like that, yeah.
So the City of Chicago ordinance, as it now stands, does require some landlords in some cases to provide affordable units?
Yeah, well, the ordinance as it now stands, if a landlord gets what's called a planned development, so the city changes...
A PUD,
yeah,
it's usually called?
Yeah, so the city changes a zoning law, or an alderman says you can build higher than is usually allowed in this area.
An exception to the zoning
Yeah.
to allow the landlord to put up some new construction or
Right,
major
right.
modification.
Yeah.
If they receive the PUD, they must do what?
If they receive a PUD and the development is over 10 units,
More
right?
than-
Right now, they either have to make 10% of those units affordable, or pay $100,000 per affordable unit that they opt out of building.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So they either have to provide 10% of the new units
Yeah.
as affordable units, and affordable units here would be defined as units at a
Right.
rental level of
So-
roughly what?
So yeah, that's another thing we're into, is that affordable doesn't often actually mean affordable. So in this case, the city says they have to be affordable for people who make 60% of the Chicago metropolitan area median income. So for people with disabilities, for example, someone who's just living on a Social Security income check of $700 a month, that is not affordable for people at that level. So
Right.
affordable means 60% of area median income.
People whose annual income is 60% or less
Right.
of the median household income for the
Right.
city of Chicago.
Right.
Okay. And if the developer does not provide
Right.
those 10% of the
Mhm.
units as affordable, the developer literally must contribute $100,000 for
Right.
every unit they do not.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot at face value, but I think it's important to remember that the city's providing this public benefit, and the developer, in our mind, has an obligation to repay that public benefit. And $100,000 is actually far less than it costs to build an affordable
unit for- an
so
affordable
people
unit for disabled
generally
people.
just pay into the fee. They pay the $100,000.
Now, where does that $100,000 go? You're not handing it to the
No,
disabled
so
person.
it goes to, part of it goes to a rental subsidy program run by the city, and part of it goes to the city's, the Chicago Affordable or Low Income Housing Trust Fund, which is a independent nonprofit that's housed within the city of Chicago. And that money goes to fund rental subsidies for extremely low income, so it's people who are 0 to 30% of area median income.
So the city of Chicago has this affordable
Right.
housing ordinance.
Right.
But DRAC is moving to.
Right. DRAC and other organizations are saying that over the past 7 years, it's just shown that it has not created enough affordable housing and enough new units to keep up with the rising housing prices in these neighborhoods. So actually, there was actually instigated by the city, community organizations and developers to say, how can we make this work better? And now we're kind of in the process of an ordinance is being introduced, and we're going to fight to improve this ordinance.
Well, it sounds like DREC is very seriously meaning business. I want to
hope
wish
so.
you all the
Yeah,
best of
thank you,
luck with
Joel. I
your
appreciate
efforts.
it. Yeah.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, definitely.
That was Brock Grosso, the housing organizer for Access Living. I'm Joel Margolis for ADAPT Productions of Chicago, and thank you for being with us.